Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rooted Mama podcast. I was really struggling with whether or not to release this podcast or not. Um, Man, y'all, I have to be honest, this Charlie Kirk shooting has really done a number on me. The fact that it has turned into this whole ordeal where people are celebrating a death and on the other side they're saying that people who mourn his death aren't paying enough attention to the other deaths around the world. Like, I feel like the fighting and the division that is taking place for Charlie Kirk is just fully displays what is the dual reality that is going on in our world. And in my mind, I just feel like these screens are a huge problem. The AI, the algorithm, all of it is successful in giving literally what you want to see. Like, so each individual person, it gives you what you want to see and what you're interested in and nothing else. And like, on a entertainment like from an entertainment perspective, that's fine, right? Like, if you're just going on these apps and things just to be entertained, that's great. But if you're going there to be informed in some way, you're only going to get your side. Whatever the algorithm decides is your side, right? Like, once you have solidified a side, it's so hard to see any other information, and then it's even hard for you to digest any other information, because you've gotten so much on one extreme that it feels nearly impossible to like cross the line or to take another person's perspective. And honestly, it is really it's getting to me. Yeah, it's getting to me, because I have this vision to bring women together and to help women. Like, I see myself as a younger person in so many of the women that I'm trying to reach, or so many of the women that I do help. And I know how I felt, which means I likely know how she feels. And in this environment, it's just so much worse. Like, I'm so thankful that I had to go through what I went through when I did, because I can only imagine what it feels like now for you all, for those women, if you're not one of those women. And I keep thinking, at present, I'm like, is it worth it? Like, all that I'm doing, like, is it really worth it? Because I don't know how I get to you. I don't know how I get to the former me anymore. I feel like the cards are really stacked against me. Number one, I was a like proud Democrat. And I'm not saying that I'm not now, but I very much had, a lot of liberal values, and the way that the liberal world operates, it very much does not allow any sort of alternative opinions. And not to say that I even have them, but it's just kind of like, how do I reach her? She's surrounded. She's lonely. She's isolated. She's being forced to pick a side. She's on Lexapro. She feels nothing and everything at the same time. And then she sees someone like me, who's like a Christian, who is telling her that she needs to come off her medication, who's telling her that she needs to worship Jesus, like all these things. And it's like, she doesn't want to do any of that, right? And I'm not trying to make her do any of that, but I will say that it is becoming glaringly obvious that this is a spiritual matter. This stuff that we are experiencing in 2025, in September of 2025, is so spiritual. And for someone like me, it's like I can't unsee it. But for the rest of the world, it's just kind of like, oh, this is like more chaos. Like, oh, no, this is very intentional. This is very much a spiritual war. And for a long time, I just walked the fine line of being open about my faith, to you guys, like being very open that I am a Christian, but not really expecting it to be like something that you share as the audience. Like, I'm not expecting you to be a devout Catholic or a devout Christian or anything like that. But truthfully, after these recent events, it just feels unavoidable. Like, I talked about it a little bit in my Instagram stories a couple of days ago, like last week, where I was like towing the line and just trying to like bring everybody in, because I genuinely see everyone as equal. Every woman is important to me, no matter what she believes. I believe that every woman who desires motherhood should have a good start to motherhood, that every woman should and can have the birth of her dreams, that every woman should feel good about her choices in motherhood and all the other things. I think that it should be a universal thing. But this is a spiritual war, and you are a part of that war, whether you want to be or not. There is a very real enemy that hates you, literally hates you, whether you believe in God or not. Because he doesn't just hate you, he hates humanity. He hates God's creation, and you are one of God's creations. You are created by God, and this enemy is working to thwart that creation, to mess it up, to pervert it, and you're a part of it. So I need to talk about the spiritual realities that you are living every day. If that's not something that you want to be a part of, that's fine. But I titled this very intentionally because so many women that I talk to, who I'm friends with, I was one of those women, they say they're dealing with mental health issues. They have anxiety, they have depression, they've got bipolar, they've got all these mental health conditions. They're stressed, they're lonely, all of these things, right? These things have a spiritual root that manifest as a mental health condition. I'm not going to get in it. Like, listen, if this isn't for you, fine. I'm at the point where we all watched a man get killed. This man tried to cross the aisle and share his disagreements openly and honestly with others. He tried to be friendly to his enemy, who he didn't perceive as an enemy, but they perceived him as an enemy, right? He tried to do the nice thing and it didn't work. Like, they killed him, right? And I'm done trying to do the nice thing, and like, either you're going to benefit from this or you're not. But I'm ready to just step into the audience that is okay with this, that is ready to fight this spiritual war and come out victorious, because newsflash, you are victorious. Like, if you believe in Jesus Christ, you are already fighting from a place of victory. Specifically about the mental health stuff, where I said, why therapy isn't working for you. It's, the title isn't inflammatory, but it's mostly true. Like, you might feel the urge to disagree, but if you genuinely feel like therapy isn't working for you, or like the medications that you're taking aren't working, what do you have to lose by considering this alternative view? Like, if you haven't thought about it before, and I'll talk about exactly what that view is in this episode, but what do you have to lose, right? That's my question. Like, if you're feeling so hopeless, if you're feeling unhappy every day, if you feel like your anxiety has control over your life and you are trying the standard route and it's not working, what do you have to lose? I'm going to pause. Okay. Let's think this through. Because the regular angle, the not spiritual angle, says you are defective, right? Like, if you choose to say, I have a chemical imbalance, or this is genetics, like, the model says, I'm defective. There's something wrong with me, right? But if you chose to take the spiritual angle, right, which is my angle, in my mind, it feels more positive, because it's saying there's absolutely nothing inherently wrong with you. You were created perfect. You were created healthy and whole and beautiful. But there's something that is spiritual that is attacking you, that is whispering in your ear, that is planting seeds of doubt, that is planting seeds of fear, that is planting seeds of unworthiness. And if you can get rid of that spirit, if you can get rid of that thing, then you'll go back to what you were created to be, which is whole, perfect, healthy, right? I feel like that's more encouraging if you come at it from that angle than to just sit in this idea that you're defective, that you were created this way to have a chemical imbalance in your brain that's never going to be fixed. So you have to take medication in perpetuity forever and ever because this imbalance is there. It's not going to fix, right? Like, I don't know. I think as someone who's looking at it from having lived it, this mentality, like to take on this identity as someone who was created healthy and whole and just had things that came on, that influenced me to think in a sick way, it was very freeing for me. And it is very free. It is very freeing right now. This is the way that I live. I mean, life can be still very hard and I could still feel overwhelmed at times, but I never, or like even, I've had so many people die, which I'm toying with talking about. I don't know if I'll get to it in this episode, but it's definitely going to be a part of this series. So many people died around me, so I was dealing with a lot of grief, a lot of sadness, a lot of emptiness, but I never took on the diagnosis or took on like the identity as like having a mental health disorder. And it's made all the difference in my life because before I did. Like I said, I'm speaking from this perspective of someone who has lived exactly what maybe you're living, someone close to you, like definitely my audience is living. So I'm so I want to take some time to walk through like what is going on. Like if I say that everything in life is spiritual, what does that really mean? And honestly, it's really not that hard to to point out because I think in normal life we really lean into the spiritual aspect of life all the time. We just don't necessarily like make it that way. Like, what am I trying to say? I guess, like, so for example, the sayings, when people are like, oh, I get bad vibes about this person, like, her aura is so good, or the energy is this, or like when they say affirmations, on some level, we all admit that there is a spiritual reality, right? I think a lot of people who don't believe in Jesus, who are predominantly atheists, they still adapt a lot of the spiritual truths, but they call it different things like aura, right? There's people wearing like aura rings and stuff like that, right? So there's certain aspects that even atheists still like, kind of participate in. And so if we come from this angle of understanding, like even at the basic level, vibes and all this stuff, then we can kind of all agree that there is a spiritual world that exists, right in the same on the same plane as our reality, right? I hope that makes sense. Like I don't want to overcomplicate it because it would require me to dive deep into like spiritual realities and all that stuff. But I think for the sake of this episode, I just want to point out that it's not so far fetched when you start to think about some of the, tropes that we say all the time, just like in regular life when we're not being super Christian or super spiritual. Yeah. Okay. So I do want to bring in a little bit of like biblical information because it's not like I'm coming from nowhere. I want it to be like, a level of grounded. And so what Christians believe is that there is a spiritual world, right? Sometimes they refer to it as heaven, right? The heavens. I mean, there is again, I don't want to get too much into it, but like there is a spiritual world, and we will return to this heaven, this spirit world when we die because our bodies no longer can live when our spirit leaves the body. So the spirit will leave the body when we die and it will return to its, spirit form, right? But what does that really mean, right? So like you are a spirit. You are a spirit. You possess a soul, you have a soul, and you live in a body. This is what Christians believe. I think this is what a lot of religions believe, honestly, like, again, in some capacity, but this is what Christians believe, right? And so the spirit is the one that is breathed from God. This is the part that is directly connected to our source, our creator, God. And then the soul is what is our personality. It's like our free will, our thoughts, our emotions, the things that we do, are the things that we decide to do, right? That's our mind. That's our soul. It's like who we are while we're on earth. Then there's the body, which we already know, right? And what's going on a lot of the times is that the enemy, so like Satan, right, is competing with God for control over our soul. He cannot get to our spirit. The spirit belongs exclusively to God. There's nothing that Satan can do to our spirit. There's nothing that Satan's children or the enemy or the demons or whatever you want to call it, the evil spirits, they can't actually touch our spirit. It is untouchable. It is literally created by God, and God has total control over it, has access to it, etc. But Satan can attack the soul. And so you hear people say, like, when they say like people are possessed, like in the movies, like Emily Rose and stuff, it's because that the an evil spirit has taken over the soul. You heard people say they sold their soul to the devil, right? All of those sayings that really just like operate in like our regular world, like regular reality that has nothing to do with Christianity. It actually does have something to do with Christianity, right? Like, we act like it doesn't, but we've heard these sayings, and they are factual and they are true. Someone can, in fact, commit their soul to the devil. In fact, that's what he wants, because when we have to present ourselves to God at the end of this life, he's going to look at all of the decisions that our soul made. He's going to look at everything that we did in our life, how we treated people, if we forgave them. All of those things are decisions and actions made by the soul. So if Satan can corrupt that, then that would then lead us to eternal separation from God, because he's corrupted the soul, right? Does that make sense? Oh, gosh, I'm not the one who like does this damnation and all this stuff. So like, we're not going to go there today, but it's just something to like understand and keep in mind, to understand kind of like how the spirit situation works. Okay. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Now let's go to, like I said, I'm going to talk about some biblical language. So Christians also believe that this spirit world is kind of the mother of this earth. So, like, what happens in the spirit manifests on earth. A lot of people talk about heaven as being like this separate, distant place. And that may very well be the case, because the Bible talks about multiple heavens. But there also is a truth that the spirit world exists at the same time, on the same plane as earth, like as this reality. Okay. And so things are going on in the spirit that directly correlate to what we see on this side. Does that make sense? And so there are a couple of verses that I want to talk about. So let me get the first one. The first one is Galatians 4:26. So let me get my Bible. And let's see. Okay, so like I said, Galatians 4:26, it says, "But the Jerusalem above is free, which is the mother of us all." And what it's talking about there is the heavenly Jerusalem. So they in the Bible, they refer to, it's like Mount Zion, it's Zion, heavenly Jerusalem. There's like a heavenly temple that that God made them build on earth. Like, so there's like a replica on earth that looks like the heavenly temple. So heavenly Jerusalem essentially can be interpreted as the spirit world, right? Or at least the spiritual reality that is reserved for righteous people when they die, the Christians when they die, right? And so it says it is the mother of us all. So what happens in the spirit world gives birth to what happens on earth, in this realm. Another Another verse that I think would be helpful here is in Matthew 16:19, and this is when Jesus is talking to Peter. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. And I like this one because number one, I love when Jesus speaks, but it's a good way to understand that what happens on earth has a direct correlation on heaven and vice versa. So what happens in heaven has a direct effect on what happens on the earth. And so he's saying that, he's given us authority to take control like in earth, and whatever happens, whatever we say, like if we speak life over ourselves, then heaven will respond, right? The angels will respond, and vice versa. If we release something that we shouldn't release, then it will be released, right? Like in heaven. So there's that correlation there. I hope this is all making sense. This is like totally foreign for me to be talking about this on Rooted Mama, but like I said, I just feel like we have too much to lose by not starting to understand some of this stuff, because especially when it comes to our mentality and our mental health, if we're not understanding how the root causes of some of this stuff, and we've tried the earth way, like you've tried the medications and the therapy and stuff, and you feel like it's not working literally at all, then maybe you need to try something else. Like even if you do believe in God and you do believe in Christ, there's possibly ways that you can heal still. Maybe you haven't trusted him to heal you, or maybe you don't know how to ask. Maybe you don't really pray. Maybe you don't really read the word of God. Like there's things, and again, not out of shame. It's just literally like if you haven't come to if you haven't come to Jesus in any real capacity about your mental health or your emotional well-being or just things in your life like stress and stuff, how can you say that he is not effective? Or how can you say that you've given it your all to heal when you haven't asked Jesus to help you, right? So, what's going on in the spirit manifests in different ways on earth, right? And something that I noticed was that when my spirit was really disconnected from God, so like if I wasn't, forget about church, like you can go to church. I'm not saying don't go to church, but there's things that I think that Christians really push non-Christians away or like new believers away because they recommend the same things that don't work, that make you feel like it's just like transactional or stuffy and judgmental and all this stuff. Like I think going to church is a good thing, but sometimes if you're easily impacted by other people, it can make things worse. Like if you go to a church and the people are not like, you don't know what kind of church you're going to, like you just decide to go to a church. Like every church is different, and they even believe different things in every church, especially among Protestant churches, right? Catholic churches, everything. I think that every priest does the same sermon or whatever it's called, message, in every Catholic church every Sunday. Like they all have the same message. I think. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what's going on there. And they all do the same sort of routine as well. Like they take the body of Christ, they sing the songs, they kneel, they stand up, they repeat. So it's like more uniform. But in a Protestant church, like it's a free for all. Like you could listen. So I don't always recommend going to church first, and sometimes you could feel worse like after having gone, if you didn't have an encounter, you don't feel like it was a good encounter with someone that you met, or the pastor was condemning you, or whatever. There's like so many variables. So like I feel like the best place to start is worship. I talked about that in a previous episode, but listening to worship music, spending quiet time with God, asking direct questions, writing things down in your journal, talking about how you feel, literally just getting practice and praying and like speaking out loud. You don't even have to ask God for anything to start. You could literally just start talking to God and saying like how you're feeling, just saying it out loud, because he hears you and he cares about you. God is not like this scary guy in the sky who just is waiting for you to go to hell. He's a father. He's someone who loves you, who cares about you, who has been watching you this whole time, waiting for you to come, waiting for this moment, waiting for you to open the door, because he's been sitting there the whole time. And so you don't have to just go to him and like know what to say. You could just literally talk. Think about how you talk to your own father or your mother or a family member that you love, your spouse. That's how you can talk to God. Um, you don't have to make it super formal. You don't have to know what to say. You can just start by starting, just talking. And highly recommend journaling your thoughts as well, because that might help you in figuring out what you want to say. If you can't just like start talking, you can like write things down and then say what you're feeling, what you're thinking. Your heavenly Father cares and loves you, and I think that is another very important point to emphasize. Like for someone like if you've gotten this far and you don't believe, or like you're skeptical, like God bless you, He wants you, because there's something in you that is willing to stay this long, and that's great. um but that's something else that I really want to emphasize. I think within the church, but when I say the church, I mean like capital C church, like the people that we see, online and stuff, is that sometimes they don't do a good job of emphasizing what is most important as a Christian, and that is a relationship with God. That is the understanding that God is love. Like, what does that really mean? Right? What does that really mean? If you've never experienced real love before, like maybe you don't even know what that means, but it's an unconditional love. It is a non judgmental love. Of course, there are things that God wants us to do, but love is really love. Like, He just wants a to commune with you, right? Your presence, to be for you to be in His presence, for Him to be in your presence, like for you to make that time set aside. That's the most important thing. And we could talk about the other stuff later. But that first initial thing is that relationship, and then you can talk about some of the other things, and a lot of the other things kind of go away when the relationship comes. So there's like certain things people are always talking about, sins and the things that you've done wrong, how you've done wrong and how you're going to hell. Well, honestly, the more that you commune with God, the more time you spend with God, your spirit will start to convict you on things and make it so that you don't even want to do them anymore. There's so many things in my life that I used to do that were like strongholds. Like, I thought I would never be able to stop doing so many of the things that I did. I was so embarrassed. I was feeling like I was letting God down. And then I realized, like, wait, I don't want to do this stuff anymore. Like, the more that I just continuously pursued Him, the more that I prayed, the more that I spent time like reading the word, the more time I spent worshiping Him, it just started to go away. So He takes care of some of that stuff for you. It doesn't seem possible, but a lot of this is believing in things that are impossible. I mean, that's what faith is believing in things unseen. So you do kind of have to pull out a little bit of faith in the beginning and just say, I don't know how this is going to happen. I feel horrible right now, but I believe that I'm going to feel better, right? And you don't have a path. That's kind of like not your job. It sounds ridiculous. I know. If you are someone like me, who I was years ago, it sounds absolutely absurd, but I'm telling you, this is my testimony that there's things that God just handled, that got handled, and it was just me pursuing Him and figuring, and like He figured it out, okay? And I didn't have to do it, and I was just healed. um yeah, so I think I think that this is probably a good place to stop for this episode, because I want to get into my personal testimony, but it's going to take a while. Like, I've shared bits and pieces, but I think, yes, at this point, I want to share the whole truth, because it will better kind of illustrate how the spirit world works in our day-to-day lives. And how we can open the door for things and how we can also close the door for things. Like there is a way out, just like we got into it, we can't get out of it. But it's a longer episode. It's a long story, y'all. And so I do want to pause and not share that today, but we'll pick back up with my testimony and like give some more real world examples of how the spirit world interacts with our world in the next episode. But I do want to leave you with encouragement that if you made it to the end of this episode and you're wanting to heal, you're wanting to get better, you're wanting to have a happy, joyful life, it is possible. And I highly recommend starting with what I said, like quiet time, some reflection time, some journaling time, listening to worship music, like really good, wholesome worship music. And highly recommend if there is something that you know is bothering you, that is toxic, that is within your power to stop today, then stop. Whether that is endlessly scrolling on Instagram or social media, if you need to take a step away from that, like not, minutes, I'm talking about like deleting the app. You can still log back in. I do it from time to time just as a cleanse, literally as a cleanse, but delete an app and just leave it off and don't go to it for a week and see how you feel after. If it's like some level of substance, if you feel like you drink every single night, this is something else I would do. Like, I'm being totally honest. I would have wine every single night. And like, I wasn't an addict. That's what I would tell myself. I'm not dependent on it. But at the same time, as soon as I was coming home from work, I needed that wine in order to unwind, right? So if you need to like try to cut that out, like take a break from whatever it is, like stop doing like one thing that you know is detrimental, that is only making things worse. You don't have to pick the big thing. Just pick something that is doable that you can do today, because you do need to start closing some doors. Because, spoiler alert, that's really what goes on here. There's doors, like spiritual doors, that we open and leave open, or maybe someone in our family opened for us when we were children. And a part of healing is closing those doors. So, my first step, my first bit of advice for today, your homework would be to close a spiritual door today and open one today. Open a good one today. So, if it's journaling, go get a journal tomorrow. If you have one already, start writing in it. You can use your notes app on your phone if you don't even want to like write anything. Although I do feel like writing is better and you can look at it separately. But if you're like a tech lady, like a tech girl or a tech guy, um, you know, do the notes on your phone. Just find a way to document. What else? Like I said, you can start with like some worship music. Just open one door today that would start you in a positive direction. And we will pick back up next time. I think what I'll do for the next couple of weeks is I already have interviews that I've recorded that are scheduled. But this is so important to me that I'll probably end up releasing 2 episodes a week, like this series, maybe midweek, and continue my weekly podcast with my interviews on the Sundays. I think it's worth it. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. I'm committed to this. And I hope you are too, because there is a way out. And the answer is Jesus. The answer is Jesus. And there's definitely a way out. Don't give up hope. I'm not saying quit your therapist today either. I'm not saying that. Unless they're terrible, then quit, right? Get rid of them. But I'm just saying, don't lose hope. There is a way out. All right. I'll see y'all in the next episode.